I was 21 when I went on that road trip with my two closest friends, Tyler and Drew. We were taking a cross-country drive from Portland to Nashville, partly for fun and partly because Drew had just gotten a job offer out there. We figured it'd be our last big trip together before life started pulling us in different directions. We planned to camp out a few nights, crash in cheap motels, and just take our time. It was one of those carefree, early 20s decisions that feels more like a movie than real life. For the first few days, it was exactly what we'd hoped for: music blasting, junk food everywhere, long stretches of empty highway with nothing but horizon. It was somewhere in Colorado where things started to shift. We were heading down a long, mostly deserted road that cut through miles of forest and flatland. The sky had been gray all day, and by the time it started raining, we hadn't seen another car in over an hour. There weren't any gas stations or towns on our GPS for miles. That's when we saw him. A man, standing alone on the shoulder. He was barefoot, wearing jeans and a dark hoodie, soaked through. No backpack, no suitcase. Just standing there, like he'd been dropped out of the sky. Tyler was driving, and he instinctively slowed down. None of us said anything right away. I think we were all waiting for someone else to make the call. Finally, Drew said, "Should we stop?" Tyler glanced at me, and I shrugged. "I mean, yeah, it's freezing. We can take him as far as the next town." So we pulled over. The guy didn't say a word when he got in. He just nodded once and climbed into the back seat next to me. He was older than us, probably mid-30s, with a scruffy beard and hollow eyes that didn't quite meet mine. He smelled faintly like wet leaves and metal. Not body odor, not sweat, just strange. "Where you headed?" Tyler asked, trying to keep it casual. The man looked forward, then out the window. "East," he said. His voice was low and flat. "Cool," Drew said from the front passenger seat. "We're headed toward Denver. We can drop you wherever." The man just nodded again. "No thank you. No name." For the first few minutes, we tried to keep the mood light, music playing, talking quietly, but the energy had changed. I kept sneaking glances at him out of the corner of my eye. He was sitting stiff, hands resting on his knees, staring out the window. Didn't move. Didn't blink much. And there was something weird about his hands. His fingernails looked dirty, but not with mud. It was darker, like dried blood. After about 30 minutes, the rain started letting up. Tyler kept checking the rearview mirror more than usual, and I knew he was watching the guy too. Nobody said anything, but we were all tense. Then Drew broke the silence. "So, you from around here?" The man didn't respond at first. Then, without turning, he said, "No one is." That was it. No follow-up. No explanation. I saw Tyler glance at me through the mirror, eyebrows raised. I tried to play it off. "You mean, like, no one lives out this way?" The man slowly turned his head and looked at me for the first time. "No one stays here long." I felt a cold knot twist in my stomach. I gave him a tight smile and looked away. A few minutes later, the guy said he needed to use the bathroom. There weren't any rest stops, so Tyler offered to pull over near a patch of woods up ahead. As soon as the car stopped, the man got out without a word and walked into the trees. We waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. "I don't like this," I said quietly. "Should we just leave?" Tyler shook his head. "We can't just ditch him in the middle of nowhere." Drew was scanning the woods nervously. He could have just needed to piss. "Let's give him a few more." Then we heard it. A sharp, metallic sound, like something hitting the side of the car. We all jumped. Tyler flinched and looked around. Was that another sound? Louder this time, like a fist slamming the trunk. Tyler threw it in reverse instinctively and backed up a few feet. Then we saw something move in the rear view, a dark shape darting behind the car. "I'm not waiting," Tyler said, and hit the gas. We peeled out, tires screeching on the wet road. I turned around in the back seat, heart pounding, trying to see where the guy went. He was standing in the middle of the road behind us, just watching, not chasing, just standing there. We didn't stop again for hours. We didn't even talk much. When we finally made it to a truck stop, we filled up, used the bathroom, and sat inside the car with the doors locked, processing what the hell had just happened. Then Drew checked his backpack. It was unzipped. He swore he'd closed it earlier. Nothing was missing, but tucked into the side pocket was something none of us had ever seen before. It was a Polaroid photo, old and faded. It showed a different car, same make and model as ours, same color. In the picture, the car was parked on the shoulder of some road, just like we had been. Standing next to it was a group of 3 guys, 2 in the front, 1 in the back, all about our age, all smiling. And in the background, standing just behind the rear passenger door, barely visible in the trees, was a man in a hoodie. His face was too blurry to see clearly, but the posture, the build, it looked just like him. There was no note, no explanation, just that photo. We threw it out. We wanted to believe it was some prank, that maybe it was planted in a pocket, or Drew was messing with us. But none of us ever told anyone else about what happened, except now. This happened about 5 years ago, when my girlfriend at the time and I were driving from California to Michigan. We'd planned to take our time, make some stops in cool little towns, and maybe even do a bit of sightseeing along the way. Nothing fancy, we were both broke grad students, so we stuck to cheap motels and roadside diners to stretch our budget. We were somewhere in Nebraska when we realized we'd pushed too far without a solid plan. It had been raining for hours, and we were both exhausted, snapping at each other over stupid things like what gas station snacks to get. Our phones were nearly dead, and we were somewhere in that stretch of highway where cell service goes to die. Just as we were about to give up and sleep in the car, we spotted one of those flickering roadside motel signs up ahead, moonlight and barely visible through the rain. It was one of those old, single-story setups where every room opens to the parking lot. A neon vacancy sign buzzed in the window of the tiny office, which looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. But it was open, and that was all we cared about. Inside, the clerk was this gaunt older guy in a brown cardigan with yellow-tinted glasses. His skin had that paper-thin, waxy look, and he talked slow, like each word was a decision. "How many nights?" he asked, even though we'd clearly dragged in 2 duffel bags and looked like roadkill. "Just one," I said. He slid a key across the counter, an actual key, not a card, attached to one of those big plastic tags with the room number stamped on it. Room 6. My girlfriend nudged me as we turned to leave. "Did you see the logbook?" she whispered. "What?" "He only has one other name written down. Room 8. I hadn't noticed, but now that she mentioned it, I glanced back. She was right. It was a paper ledger, and only one other line was filled in. We chalked it up to bad business or just a slow night. Honestly, I was too tired to care. We drove around the side of the building, parked in front of our room, and unloaded. The room was what you'd expect. Dim overhead light. Stiff sheets. A dresser with a tube TV bolted down on top. The kind of place where everything feels slightly damp no matter the season. But it was clean enough, and the water in the shower was hot, so we didn't complain. We were just about to try and sleep when we heard the door to room 8 open and shut. It was a sharp sound, metal on metal, like someone slamming it harder than they needed to. We paused. Then footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, slow. Walking back and forth right outside. I peeked through the curtain, just enough to see. There was a man standing outside room 8, facing the parking lot. He was tall, taller than average, and completely still, just staring out into the dark. No umbrella, no jacket, just a pale button-up shirt that clung to him from the rain. Even from that distance, something about his posture was wrong, too rigid, like he was holding himself in place. After maybe 2 minutes, he walked out of view, but I didn't hear another door open. No footsteps this time either. We waited. Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself he'd just gone around the building to smoke or something, and I climbed into bed. My girlfriend curled up next to me, still uneasy, but too tired to argue. That's when we heard it. From the other side of the wall. A sound like scratching. No, not scratching. More like tapping. Slow, rhythmic taps against the wall right where the headboard was. Then silence. Then a long dragging sound, like furniture being pulled across carpet. I whispered, "Do you hear that?" She nodded against my shoulder. We both held our breath. Then something else, a voice. Muffled. Low. It sounded like someone talking directly against the wall, like their mouth was inches from the sheetrock. I couldn't make out the words, but it wasn't just noise. It was speech. I sat up, debating whether to go to the front office. My girlfriend grabbed my arm and mouthed, "No." We just stayed there, listening. Around 3 a.m., it finally stopped. No more tapping. No more whispers. Nothing but the hum of the old air conditioner and the occasional creak from the walls. We left at first light. When we returned the key to the front office, the same guy was there, sipping something from a mug. He didn't look surprised to see us, but he did raise one eyebrow slightly. "Everything all right?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, room was fine." He nodded once, took the key, and dropped it in a wooden drawer. Curiosity got the better of me. "Is the guy in room 8 still here?" I asked. The clerk looked up at me over his glasses, then slowly turned the ledger so I could see it. Room 8 was still the only other entry, but now the name was scribbled out, not crossed out. Scribbled, over and over in thick black ink, like someone had been trying to erase it from existence. Must have checked out early, the clerk said without looking up again. We didn't speak until we were miles down the road. And even then, all I could say was, "Did you see what I saw?" She nodded. Someone was in that room, but I don't think they ever left. This happened on a road trip my friend Sarah and I took during the last summer before grad school. We'd been saving for months, just enough to get out of town for a week or two and escape the burnout. Our plan was to drive from Colorado through Utah and Arizona, hitting some of the national parks and ghost towns, camping when we could, and crashing at cheap motels when we couldn't. It was the kind of trip where time didn't matter. We didn't book much ahead. We just followed the map and our gut. That kind of freedom has its own kind of thrill, but also a kind of danger we didn't really think about. This was our 4th day on the road. We just spent the night in a tiny cabin outside Moab and were headed toward Capitol Reef. The terrain out there is wild, long stretches of red desert, plateaus, boulder fields, and nothing else. You can drive for miles without seeing another car or building. No cell service, no gas stations, just horizon. It was late afternoon, the sun sinking low, casting everything in that rich orange hue that makes the rocks look like they're on fire. I remember thinking how beautiful it was, how peaceful. And then Sarah slowed down. "Do you see that?" she said. I looked up from my phone. We were the only car on the road, but up ahead, something was lying in the center of the asphalt. It was too solid to be roadkill, too clean to be trash. Sarah slowed to a crawl as we approached. It was a camera, a full-size DSLR, just lying there in the middle of Route 24, dead center between the faded yellow lines. We stopped beside it. The engine idled. Neither of us said anything at first. "I mean," Sarah said, glancing at me, "it's just sitting there. Like someone placed it, not dropped." It was true. It wasn't scuffed or broken. The lens wasn't cracked. It looked like it had been gently set down, almost too deliberately. I got out of the car. The air was hot and completely still. No wind, no insects, just silence. I picked up the camera, and for a second, I felt this strange hesitation, like I was doing something I shouldn't. It was dusty, but intact. A Canon, probably a few years old. The strap had been ripped off, leaving the eyelets frayed. I flipped it over and saw the battery light blinking faintly. It still had power. When I got back in the car, Sarah leaned across the console. "Anything on it?" I turned it on. The screen lit up. Whoever had it last had left it on review mode, mid-scroll, paused on a photo. A landscape shot, red cliffs under a pale sky. I tapped the button to cycle back through the gallery. At first, it was exactly what you'd expect. Dozens of travel photos, arches, trailheads, deserts. A couple appeared in several shots, smiling in front of canyons, perched on rocks, toasting drinks by a campfire. Probably in their late 20s, early 30s. The man was tall, lean, with dark hair. The woman had a buzz cut and big sunglasses. They looked happy. Then things started to shift. I clicked forward, and suddenly the scenery looked less posed. The angles were off. Blurry shots. Photos taken from inside the car, aimed out the windshield like someone was documenting the drive. One photo showed the rearview mirror, and in it, a car far behind them following. Headlights faint in the distance. Nothing too unusual, except the next 10 shots were almost identical, as if someone had kept checking behind them. Next came a photo taken from what looked like inside a tent. You could see the orange fabric glowing faintly from the campfire outside. The woman was sitting cross-legged, staring past the camera, eyes wide. Then came the one that made my stomach twist. It was taken through the windshield again, but now the car wasn't moving. It was parked. The headlights were off. In the image, out in the desert maybe 20 feet ahead, was a figure. You could barely make out the shape, tall, unmoving, facing the car. Dressed in dark, loose-fitting clothes, maybe a hoodie or scarf around the head. Too blurry to make out a face. The next photo was closer. Then another. Closer still. The figure now fully filled the frame. "Okay," I muttered. "Okay, no. What?" Sarah said, and I showed her. She squinted. "Is that a person?" I didn't answer. I just kept scrolling. Next was a shot taken at night. Through a tent flap again. The fire outside had died down, and in the weak glow of dying embers, the same figure stood, just at the edge of visibility, facing the tent. Another shot, the woman again, now inside the car, eyes full of panic. And then a selfie. It was the guy, the man from the couple, holding the camera up, taking a photo over his shoulder. He was wide-eyed, mouth open slightly, frozen in fear. And behind him, standing in the background just beyond the car, was the figure, closer than before. Still no clear face, just darkness where the face should be. I stopped scrolling. I didn't want to see anymore. Is there a date? Sarah asked, and I checked. The last photo had been taken less than 48 hours ago. Then came the one that broke me. The last image. It was us, taken from behind, standing next to our car. The exact moment I picked the camera up off the road. Same clothes, same lighting, same sky. My hands went cold. Sarah didn't say anything, but I could hear her breathing change. Did you feel anyone watching us? She asked. No, I said quietly, but someone was. We slammed the car doors and started driving. Fast. I kept checking the mirrors, half expecting to see someone in the distance. But there was nothing. Just empty road and desert shadows. We didn't stop again for hours. When we finally pulled into a tiny motel around midnight, neither of us wanted to bring the camera inside. We wrapped it in a towel and left it locked in the trunk. I didn't sleep much. Every time a car passed, I flinched. Every time the wind rattled the windows, I thought of that figure. Watching, waiting. The next morning, when we got up, the camera was gone. We tore the trunk apart, searched under the seats, checked the lot to see if someone had broken in. Nothing else was touched, just the camera. The towel we'd wrapped it in was folded neatly on the passenger seat. We left that morning without checking out. We didn't say a word for the first 100 miles. I didn't even ask Sarah what she thought happened. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want confirmation that it wasn't a dream. Even now, years later, I don't know what to make of it. I've told this story to a few close friends, but every time I do, I leave out the last photo. That part always feels too unreal to say out loud. Because someone took that picture. Someone was watching us before we even knew they were there. And the worst part is, I don't think we found that camera. I think it found us. This happened in the summer of 2021, during a cross-country road trip I took with my friend Ben. We'd been planning it since the first year of college, one of those before real life starts kind of things. Our route took us from Virginia to California over the course of about 2 weeks. We camped some nights, stayed in sketchy motels others, and filled every spare second with music, snacks, and bad jokes. Ben had just gotten a GoPro as a gift from his brother and was obsessed with filming everything. He mounted it on the dashboard and recorded full days of driving, mostly out of habit. In case something cool happens, he said. Or in case we got in a wreck, which felt slightly more practical. We never really reviewed the footage. He just backed it up on a hard drive at night and erased the card in the morning. It became routine. But then we drove through New Mexico. It was the 7th day of our trip. We left Amarillo that morning and planned to get as close to Flagstaff as we could before crashing for the night. That stretch of highway, specifically I-40 through eastern New Mexico, was endless. Just scrubland and red soil and broken down fences. Hours would go by without a gas station or town in sight. We were somewhere west of Tucumcari when I started feeling off. It wasn't nausea or sleepiness, just this weird, heavy pressure in my chest. Like we'd driven into some kind of bubble where everything was a little too quiet, too still. Ben said he felt it too, like his ears were trying to pop even though we weren't gaining altitude. Neither of us thought much of it. We'd been driving for hours, and the monotony messes with your brain. Eventually, the feeling passed. The sun went down, and we pulled into a cheap roadside motel around 11:30 that night, completely wiped. We were in the room maybe 20 minutes before Ben got curious and decided to offload the GoPro footage like he always did. He sat on the edge of the bed, plugging the camera into his laptop while I changed into sweats and crashed into the other bed. "You're not gonna believe this," he said suddenly. I cracked one eye open. "What? You slept for like 2 hours earlier. I filmed the whole thing. You were out cold." I sat up. "No, I wasn't." "Dude, yeah you were. Around 6 o'clock. You said you were going to take a quick nap, then boom, dead to the world." I frowned. "I don't remember that." Ben spun the laptop around. On the screen was a frame of the dashcam footage, long shadows stretching across the empty road, sun low in the sky. My head was tilted against the passenger window, eyes closed. "See?" he said. I watched for a moment. I didn't remember dozing off, but it wasn't impossible. Then I noticed something weird. Wait, why are you so quiet? Ben raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I scrubbed back through the footage. Usually when Ben drove, he talked. He sang. He monologued like an idiot. But in this clip, he was completely silent. Just the hum of the engine and the occasional turn signal. I don't know, he said, watching the video with me now. Maybe I was zoning out. We kept watching. A few minutes later in the footage, there was a sound. Not from us, not from the car. A voice. Ben paused the video. Play that back, I said. He rewound about 10 seconds and hit play. At first, just road noise. Then, at the 12:08 mark, clear as day, a third voice whispered. Don't look behind you. My blood went cold. It wasn't me. I was visibly asleep. It wasn't Ben. His mouth wasn't moving, and the voice didn't sound like either of us. It was quiet, raspy, almost like someone speaking directly into the mic from the back seat. Ben jumped up and turned on the lights. No, thank you. We scrubbed through the rest of the footage, and it got worse. At 12:27, there was another whisper. They always leave the door unlocked. Then static, just for a split second. Then, at 12:44, barely audible. I like this one. We both sat there in stunned silence. Our car only had 2 doors. It was a compact SUV. There wasn't any way someone could have been hiding in the back without us knowing. And we hadn't stopped since lunch. No passengers. No rest stops. No one could have gotten in. Ben pulled up the GoPro's internal mic settings. No glitches. No interference. Nothing to suggest the audio had been corrupted or tampered with. We checked the car that night. Every inch of it. Glove box, trunk, under the seats. Nothing. We even took the camera into the motel bathroom and recorded ourselves whispering from the shower to see if the mic could have picked up a voice like that. It couldn't, not even close. At 2 a.m., we gave up and tried to sleep. I don't think either of us really did. We left before sunrise the next morning. Here's the thing, though. The next day, the GoPro stopped working. It powered on, but the screen glitched out. It wouldn't record. The footage we'd seen the night before? Gone. The files vanished off Ben's laptop too, replaced with a folder of corrupted thumbnails that wouldn't open. He tried data recovery. Nothing worked. That was 3 years ago. We finished the trip, but something between us shifted. That feeling in the desert never really went away. We both had this unspoken agreement to never drive at night anymore. And we never talked about what we heard. Like if we didn't acknowledge it, it couldn't follow us. But sometimes, when I'm in my car alone, I swear I hear it again. Just under the noise of the road. A whisper I can't quite make out. This happened last year when I was driving cross-country with my cousin Max. He had just moved back to the States after working overseas for a few years, and I had just quit a job I hated. We figured it was the perfect time to do something impulsive, so we rented a car and hit the road. No deadlines, no responsibilities, just miles of open highway. We were 3 days in, somewhere outside Cheyenne, Wyoming. It was one of those long, uneventful drives where the scenery barely changes and you lose track of time. The sky was starting to go dark, and we hadn't seen another car in at least an hour. That stretch of road was empty, just flat land and fences, and the occasional billboard that looked 100 years old. I remember we were talking about old ghost stories from when we were kids, joking about urban legends and weird what-if scenarios. That's when we saw the flashing lights, red and blue, suddenly appearing in the rearview mirror. No siren, just the lights, cutting through the growing dark like a warning. Max looked at me. Were you speeding? I wasn't. I had the cruise control set 5 under the limit, just out of paranoia. But we were in the middle of nowhere, so I figured maybe there was some technicality I missed. I pulled over. The cruiser stopped behind us. We waited. He didn't approach right away. A full minute passed. Maybe more. Then the driver's side door opened, and a man stepped out. He was wearing what looked like a police uniform. Dark blue shirt, heavy boots, utility belt. But even from inside the car, something looked off. The uniform was too plain. No name tag. No shoulder patch. Just a badge clipped to his chest. But even that didn't look right, like something you'd find in a Halloween costume aisle. Too shiny, too smooth. Max leaned toward the passenger window. Something's weird. I didn't respond. My gut was already screaming. The man walked slowly toward us. No flashlight. No radio. Just calm, deliberate steps. He didn't look nervous or annoyed or cautious, just blank. His face was pale and round, maybe mid-40s, with eyes that didn't seem to move. They just stared straight ahead like he was on autopilot. When he reached my window, I rolled it down halfway. "Evening, sir," he said flatly. "License and registration." I handed over my license and the rental paperwork. He didn't even glance at them, just took them, nodded once, and said, "Step out of the car." That was it. No explanation. No mention of what I did wrong. "No, do you know why I pulled you over?" I hesitated. Is there a problem, officer?" He didn't answer. He just repeated, a little firmer, "Step out of the vehicle." At this point, Max and I exchanged a glance. I could see the tension in his shoulders. He was ready to bolt. I was too. "Sorry," I said. "Do you mind telling us what this is about?" Still nothing. The guy blinked once, slowly, then turned and started walking. Not back to his car. Into the field next to the road. He walked down the embankment, through the tall grass, and disappeared into the dark. Still holding my license and paperwork. We sat there frozen. After maybe 30 seconds, I rolled up the window and put the car in drive. "Go," Max said. "Go now." I didn't need convincing. We took off, tires kicking up dust as we peeled away. I kept checking the rear view, expecting to see him running after us. But there was nothing. Just empty road behind us, getting darker by the second. About 10 miles later, we saw real lights up ahead. A gas station. We pulled in and went straight inside. Both of us rattled. The guy at the counter could tell we looked off. "You boys all right?" he asked. I explained what happened, kind of. I said we got pulled over by a weird cop who didn't explain anything and then walked off into a field with my ID. I left out the part about how fake the whole thing felt. The clerk frowned. Was it a state trooper? Or local? "No idea," I said. There weren't any markings. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "You said he walked into the field?" "Yeah." The guy leaned on the counter, voice low. "You're not the first. Couple months back, a trucker came through here saying the same thing. Cop with no name tag, weird badge, walked off into the woods. Never came back. Took his license with him." Max spoke up. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" The clerk shrugged. "You're about 10 miles from the old Fremont checkpoint. Used to be a state patrol outpost, back in the 80s. Shut down after one of the troopers went missing. Some say he lost it out here. Walked into the hills and never came back. I asked if there was any way to report it. He just looked at me and said, "To who?" That night, we slept in the car. We locked the doors, turned on the dome light, and parked under the brightest part of the gas station lot. Neither of us said it out loud, but we were afraid he'd come back. The next morning, I went to the DMV to replace my license. I told them it was lost during travel. They gave me a temporary one, no questions asked. But 2 weeks later, after I got home, something showed up in the mail. No return address, just a plain white envelope, postmarked from somewhere in Wyoming. Inside was my license. No note, no explanation, but the back was scratched. 4 deep lines across the magnetic strip, long, deliberate, like claw marks.